Plenty of news here. Not much news in Eagle Land new, but there are things to talk about, as always, with what's going on with this team. John, yesterday, and I'm going to start here just to get your broader perspective here. John, I think this is a tough offseason for Howie, just that it's the decisions to make are not as clear cut as they normally are, and they're not always clear cut decisions, but normally it would be pretty easy to say, yeah, we're going to keep our $32 million wide receiver. It doesn't feel like those decisions are so easy this time around with AJ, with even Jalen Phillips, if you're going to get into the $25 million plus range. I think starting with AJ, though, your 1A of the offseason, it just feels like a tough decision, John. I mean, everything points to, okay, they're going to get rid of AJ, but it's bad business. Like Jeff Kerr said on Tuesday, it's bad business for the Eagles. They're not going to get the compensation back for them. They're not going to be a better football team, and they're going to have to eat a boatload of money that they don't want to eat. I mean, it feels to me like it's a lose, lose, lose for Howie. And I don't see Howie wanting to make that move. What do you make of it? And do you think the decisions are as tough right now as I think they might be for this team?
I think it's how you frame it. Everything you said is correct. And then I go, and the only thing you left out is what I've been saying all week. You don't want hostages. If he doesn't want to be here, all of that evaporates. And that to me is the discussion. Now, everything I hear from
you think that's more important, though? That's more important than having a good player.
Yeah. If he doesn't want to be here, it turns into not being a good player. That's what happens.
See, all right, I don't disagree with you, but this would be my pushback on it. So we think placating to basically AJ's emotions, for lack of a better word for it, are more important than having great players. Like John, if they get rid of AJ Brown, and then they draft an offensive lineman in round 1 who's going to be on the bench in year 1. I mean, John, doesn't that look like they're kind of selling on the 26th season? I mean, you use a luxury pick.
Well, I think hiring
and you get rid of AJ Brown. I mean,
I think hiring Sean Manning could be argued that you're punting on the 2026 season. So, I mean, it's actually the Eagles aren't. I mean, I'm not trying to say they are, but when you hire an offensive coordinator with 2 years of coaching experience and has never called a play in his life, even as a quarterback, that's not Kellen Moore, who's been doing it for years and years and years. And obviously they were looking at Mike McDaniel and Brian Daboll, so they were trying to replicate the Kellen Moore aspect, somebody with significant play calling experience before they pivoted, because they had to pivot. So there's a lot of ways you could look at that, other than the Eagles in their minds are always trying to win, but there's different ways to go about winning. Like you had AJ Brown. Look, first of all, it's weird for me because all I've done is talk about AJ Brown. I'll say it right now. I think he's the greatest wide receiver in this team's history, franchise history, and they have Hall of Famers, Tommy McDonald, Harold Carmichael. I think this is the best receiver they've ever had, ever. And if it's going to be a short shelf life, it's going to be a short shelf life. But, the AJ Brown of last season wasn't as good as the AJ Brown of the prior 2 seasons. Why? And people say, well, he's not trying. There's no effort, which I don't even agree with. That's Eagles fans. The late hand stuff, where when it works, it's great. He's the greatest thing since sliced bread. When it doesn't work, he's not trying. So I don't agree with any of that stuff. But what I do agree with is he didn't play as well because he struggled to keep his focus because he was frustrated.
Right.
And if he's going to be frustrated again, and I think he's going to be frustrated again, well then, it changes the equation. But to your standpoint of all the business stuff, yeah, it doesn't make sense. And obviously you prefer that he'd be happy. And if he was happy, and you wouldn't even have a discussion. But from
I
all
know,
the
but it just
indications,
feels to me like I agree with you. It just feels to me like Howie's not gonna make bad decisions just because AJ's butthurt. Like I get your point. You don't want hostages, and I think it's correct to be frank. But really, I mean, we're gonna make ourselves a worse football team. I'm gonna lose the trade. I'm not gonna get back the value that the player's worth. I'm not gonna replace the player with a better receiver. I'm going to lose every part of the trade because you're bitching and moaning while making $32 million. Like, that doesn't, is Howie going to do that? I get your point. You're right. I don't know. I
well,
feel like the other side of it's compelling as well.
The ultimate team game, you can win in different ways. You don't have to win the same way. You don't have to replace AJ Brown with AJ Brown because you can't, number one. But you can win in a different framework, in a different style. And who knows what Devontae Smith looks like as wide receiver one. I know the team thinks he can be a wide receiver one. We'll see if he can, if it happens. All I can say is they're certainly listening. They're certainly, from everything I've heard from Indianapolis, is that behind the scenes there are talks. So all the, Howie world tour of, and he said the same thing. He's just saying the same thing. We generally, don't trade away good players. We want to add to good players. We don't get rid of good players. And then he says, but it's our job as GM to listen. Well, he's listening.
Yeah.
Now, early indications I've gotten is he wants a 1 and a 2. I don't think that's plausible. But that's Howie overshoot.
But that sounds more like it. I mean, I get it. I get that it's not plausible, and I don't think they're going to end up with a 1 and a 2 either for a $29 million wideout. But that's more plausible to me. Where I struggle is like you're going to get back a second round.
Well, yeah, they can get a 1 and a 2. It might sound better, but they're still not replacing them. They could have a 1 and a 2.
I know they're not replacing them, but at least you're getting back something of significant value that you can build with. I still think they're punting this 26 season, but
and I don't think they look at, even if they do trade him, I don't think they'll look at it like they're punting the 2026 season. But I've looked at that like that since they hired Sean Mannion. I think it's absurd to think he's not going to have growing pains. I think it's silly. I mean, what I guess it's possible.
Oh, he's gonna. Yeah, no, it's not possible. John, find me.
No, I mean, I guess he could be the most natural play caller of all time, is what I'm saying. But what are the odds of that? Very unlikely.
Well, even if he is, I mean, won't he still have growing pains?
Well, you would think, but
yeah,
for all the people,
he's gonna have growing pains.
I've got a lot of you're negative. It's just common sense. It's not negativity. So from that standpoint, and I've said pretty consistently, does this market, does this city, does this team have enough patience for that? Well, I haven't seen it. Why would it start now? And if you're going to reboot, then if that is truly your punting, why wouldn't you trade him then? Just get him out of here and start the reboot.
Well, I agree with you. I mean, if they're going to get rid of Dallas Goedert or let Goddard walk, let Nakobe Dean walk, if Ed Kratz is right and Jalen Phillips walks and AJ Brown gets traded, I don't mean to be the bearer of bad news this morning, but I don't think the Eagles are competing for a Super Bowl in 2026. And they drafted an offensive lineman in round 1, which is no guarantee. But if they did do that with the sight on the future, I would say, folks, I'll see you in 2027 because I don't think they're competing in